Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or The Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my week number 12 quarterback start or sit decisions. Inside today's video, I'm going to be going in depth into every single matchup from all three games on Thanksgiving, all the way until Monday Night Football, and I'll be telling you guys whether I think you should start or sit the quarterbacks in every single game. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. Today's video is brought to you guys by BetMGM. We'll be talking about them a little bit later. They have a great offer for you. So without further ado, let's get on into my week number 12 quarterback start or sit decisions. We begin with the first of three Thanksgiving matchups, the Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions. Now, Josh Allen is listed as a start this week up against a putrid Lions defense. And I understand that the Lions defense last week played quite well up against the Giants, but there's a big difference between the Giants and the Bills offense. Now, I also understand that Josh Allen is in a bit of a slump right now. Over the last couple of games, Josh Allen hasn't really looked like that same Josh Allen that we're used to from earlier on in the season. Maybe it is the fact that that injury is impacting him, but ultimately here, I do think this is a big get-right game for Josh Allen, and I think he takes a dump on the chest of the Detroit Lions. And if he doesn't end up having a very solid performance here, then we are going to have to reevaluate things next week. We'll probably still end up starting him, but my kind of excitement towards it, my confidence towards Josh Allen will be lower if he plays bad in this spot. But again, ultimately, I think Josh Allen ends up being a very solid top 3 quarterback on the week. Jared Goff is going to be a sit in this matchup. The Buffalo Bills defense hasn't really been that amazing this season, but ultimately, I think the Detroit Lions are in a big down game here. They are on a solid win streak. Dan Campbell is fucking fired up, but ultimately, I think Jared Goff ends up shitting the bed in this spot. Obviously, there is some upside for Jared Goff because if the Buffalo Bills really pour on the points early, then Jared Goff could fire his way back into being a fantasy relevant player in the second half of the game when the Bills are up by so much. But ultimately, I just don't trust him up against the Bills defense. Next up, we move to an NFC beast matchup in the NFC East, the New York Football Giants at the Buffalo Bills. Now, Daniel Jones shit the bed in a big way last week. That matchup on paper up against the Lions looked like a wet dream. I thought Daniel Jones was going to take that defense to pound town. Now, I'm not saying that Daniel Jones was going to be like a top 5 quarterback or something, but with the rushing upside that he has up against the Lions defense that is arguably the worst defense in the NFL, I really expected more out of Daniel Jones, though I do feel like this matchup between these two teams is going to end up being close. I understand that the Dallas Cowboys just beat the brakes off of the Minnesota Vikings last week, but ultimately, I do think since they are in the same division, this game will be sneaky close, and I think Daniel Jones has a decent performance, even though he's throwing to a bunch of janitors out there outside of Darius Slayton. You've probably never heard of a majority of the wide receivers, especially now that the boy Wan'Dale Robinson is out for the rest of the season. Dak Prescott is a must-start week in and week out. Ever since coming back from the injury, he has looked relatively impressive. The Giants defense has been pretty hit or miss this season. Last week, obviously, they got absolutely butt-fucked by Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions offense. I don't necessarily think that will be the case where Dak Prescott just dumps all over him, but I still do believe that Dak Prescott is a start-worthy quarterback with top 5 upside. Next up, we got the final game on Thanksgiving, the New England Patriots at the Minnesota Vikings. Mac Jones has just been an embarrassment this year. Last week up against the Jets, he was actually relatively consistent compared to the fact that I honestly thought that he was going to play awful because of how good the Jets defense is, but ultimately, when they get in the red zone, they don't really trust Mac Jones. They're just going to hand the ball to Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris, so Mac Jones's touchdown upside is severely limited, so I honestly don't think anyone is comfortable starting Mac Jones, and he has 0 rushing upside as well. Kirk Cousins is listed as a start in this matchup. Last week, obviously, up against the Cowboys, like I talked about, the Cowboys just made it rain points like they were at the strip club on the Vikings defense, and Kirk Cousins looked lost. He needed a fucking map, but ultimately, this week, I do think he bounces back, but I am a little bit worried because Kirk Cousins' nickname, after all, is the new nightmare. During the 1 o'clock games, this guy's amazing. But as it gets darker and darker and darker, Kirk Cousins starts to get a little bit nervous. Maybe it's past his bedtime or some shit. The Patriots defense is pretty good, so Kirk Cousins is start worthy, but not a guy that I'm banging the drum for, especially since this game's at night. It would be hilarious if that agenda on Kirk Cousins really was true and he just played terrible in this matchup. Next up, we move to the Sunday slate with the Denver Broncos at the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have named Mono Man Sam Darnold as the starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, or not the Denver Broncos, of the Carolina Panthers, and up against the Denver Broncos defense, this motherfucker might end up seeing ghosts because this matchup is going to be incredibly tough. The Denver Broncos defense is super good. They're really the sole spot, the sole bright spot on this team is their defense. So I think Sam Darnold's going to struggle, but at the end of the day, Baker Mayfield was awful. Baker Mayfield could have won that game. The defense stood on its head for the Carolina Panthers. I really think this is going to be a really low-scoring game. Russell Wilson, Mr. Unlimited. I honestly thought Mr. Unlimited was going to have a really good game up against the Raiders. Earlier on in the year, I believe it was in week number 4, Russell Wilson's best performance came up against the Raiders. Last week, he didn't really do all that much. The Panthers' defense is sneaky good, so Russell Wilson is best left on the bench. Next up, we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Cleveland Browns. In this spot, I'm going to start old man Tampa Bay Tom Brady, the GOAT, going up against the Cleveland Browns. Tom Brady is now 2-0 after his divorce to his wife, Giselle. So Tom Brady in the post-divorce era is now in his bag. He's been playing really well. He has looked a lot better as of recently. The Cleveland Browns defense is pretty hit or miss. They obviously have big players on that defense like Myles Garrett, but Myles Garrett was not able to apply any pressure to Tua Tagovailoa 2 weeks ago, and last week up against the Buffalo Bills, it wasn't like the Browns were a huge force defensively in that matchup. They were at the beginning, but after half, it was just kind of a wrap for them. I think Tom Brady has a really solid game, and I hope that Tom Brady's redemption is coming. Like, he's going to continue to be a solid player because he has so many weapons, and motherfuckers just keep dropping the ball. Like, Tom will throw a heat-seeking missile directly at their fucking hands, and they drop it. It's been a tough scene for old man Tom, but he is start worthy here. Jacoby Brissett is going to be a sit. I know the Buccaneers defense isn't what we thought they would be going into the season, but I don't really trust Jacoby Brissett, and this is the final week of Jacoby Brissett before we get Deshaun Watson next week up against the Houston Texans. Should be an incredible matchup. Maybe not like a high-scoring tit-for-tat game because the Texans suck cock at playing offense and defense, but I think Deshaun Watson might blow the door out of those guys. So next up, we move to the Baltimore Ravens at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Lamar Jackson, again, last week was just a disaster for the Ravens. It was a disaster for the Panthers. It was an incredibly low-scoring game all the way through the end. Lamar Jackson has been in a bit of a slump. He's not necessarily shit in the bed every week, but he hasn't been the guy he was early on in the season where it's like, oh, you just pencil Lamar Jackson in as one of the top-end MVP candidates in the NFL. That has not been the case as of recently, but if there was ever a time for him to bounce back, it would be up against the Jaguars defense, who have been incredibly hit or miss this season. We've seen games where the Jaguars defense is standing on its head. It's looking incredible, but then we've seen other games where the defense is getting their back blown out. So ultimately here, up against Lamar Jackson, I really think Lamar Jackson has a solid game. Trevor Lawrence looked really good up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Not last week, but the week before because they were on bye last week. I do think Trevor Lawrence is start-worthy. Again, he's not a guy that I necessarily want to bang the drum for every single week because he has been inconsistent, but ultimately there's a lot worse players to be starting than Trevor Lawrence. But before we move on in to the next game, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our sponsor over at BetMGM, and they have a no-brainer offer for you right now. If you are a brand new user and click on the link in the description down below or in the pinned comment and you bet $10 on any pre-game World Cup money line, you will win $200 in free bets if any team scores a goal in the World Cup. So you could realistically lose your bet. No one scores in that game and still get $200 free because someone is eventually going to score in the World Cup. It is guaranteed for you to bet $10, and you will guaranteed receive $200 in free bets. Your bet doesn't even have to win. It could win or it could lose. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it real quick. You're going to go onto BetMGM. It's on your screen right now. You're going to navigate to the top of the screen where it says soccer, and then you're going to just pick whichever team is the biggest favorite on that day. Bet $10 on them, and as long as someone scores a goal in the World Cup, which is guaranteed to happen, you receive $200 in free bets. So make sure you take advantage of this right now before it is too late, because it only has 11 days left until this offer disappears. So make sure you guys take advantage of it right now. Next up, we move to the Houston Texans at the Miami Dolphins in Miami. Tua Tagovailoa is obviously going to be a start in this matchup. Tua is on a potential MVP campaign. This guy has been playing lights out. He's putting up numbers that Dan Marino didn't even put up. People are starting to call him, instead of Dan Marino, he's Tan Marino. Very funny. As a Dolphins fan, I find that to be quite funny. The only issue with this is that the Dolphins might just be smacking the shit out of the Texans and just run the ball a lot late in the game. But realistically, if they're laying the pipe to that ass like they're a plumber, realistically, Tua probably dumps on him early on in the game, right? He probably already has a solid enough performance to where they're running the ball. So I do have slight worries anytime there's a quarterback in a matchup where it's like, oh, wow, this should be really easy. But then again, Tua will be just fine, and realistically, his ceiling this week is the number one quarterback, because again, the Texans' defense is really bad, but the Dolphins have started to run the ball a little bit more, which obviously sucks for Tua, but it's great for the team. Davis Money Mills. This guy really did not improve at all coming from last season. Last season, I think Davis Mills, honestly, was pretty underrated. There was a lot of people making fun of him, and I made fun of him too, right? The guy has a fucking giraffe neck looking like the guy that is the mascot of Toys R Us, but ultimately, Davis Money Mills is a sit in the spot, and the Dolphins defense has looked way better at home. Next up, we got the Chicago Bears at the New York Jumbo Jets. Justin Fields is a must start every single week. Now, Justin Fields is going into this game banged up, and as of right now, we don't have full clearance on if he's going to actually end up playing in this game. I have seen some doctors talk about how maybe he should sit out 2 to 3 weeks. Maybe, hey, this season's over, the Bears suck ass, let's just wrap things up and move on to next year. There's also some people saying that, hey, he should be fine, he should play in this game. So it's really up in the air right now as I'm recording today's video. We will have more news as we get closer to Sunday, but based upon right now, it seems like, based upon what I've read as well, that it's basically on Justin Fields if he wants to play or not. Justin Fields appears to be a dog. He wants to play, so I think Justin Fields will end up playing in this game up against the Jets. The Jets defense is definitely a tough matchup, right? This is no cupcake matchup. We just saw the Jets defense play incredible up against the Patriots, and obviously Zach Wilson let the team down, but Justin Fields is going to end up being a solid start this week. I don't think he really is a boom because of the fact that his injury could impact him, but at the end of the day, do you really have that many quarterbacks that you want to start over Justin Fields, even if he is banged up? Zach Wilson is obviously a sit. Zach Wilson is fucking awful. He's awful. Sam Darnold would be better than Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is seeing ghosts to the nth degree. This guy is hot fucking garbage, dick, cheese. There's so many words to define how garbage of a player Zach Wilson is. It's honestly embarrassing. And that post-game press conference where the reporter's like, hey, Zach, the defense played really good. Do you think you let the defense down? No. The fuck you mean, Zach? No, you didn't let the defense down. I'm not a Jets fan, but if I was a Jets fan, I'd fucking break my television in half after hearing that bullshit excuse. Shut the fuck up, Zach. Pal, listen up. Listen up. Hope you can hear me. Maybe take some accountability. Because your ass is getting sent on a Greyhound straight to Toronto to be the next CFL quarterback. So next up, we got the Cincinnati Bengals at the Les Titans. Joe Burrow, Joe Shiesty has seemed to have gotten his swagger back a little bit. He has been playing a little bit better as of recently. Even without Jamar Chase, it seems pretty up in the air if Jamar Chase ends up playing. Ultimately, I don't really care if he does or not. Like, I'm still going to start him. Maybe he would move up one spot in my rankings if Jamar Chase played. It's not going to swing him way higher in the rankings, being without Jamar Chase. Obviously, it sucks, right? You'd prefer Jamar Chase to be out there, but ultimately, the Titans defense, pretty good against the run. I still think Joe Burrow is going to be able to get it done in this matchup. Ryan Tannehill is going to be a sit. Ryan Tannehill has been a disaster this season. Hopefully now, Treylon Burks is able to take this guy over top, and maybe in the next couple of weeks, as we get closer to the Fantasy Football Championship, if you're streaming quarterbacks, then maybe Ryan Tannehill becomes a viable fantasy football streaming option, but right now, I don't want anything to do with Tannehill. Next up, we move to the Atlanta Falcons at the Washington Commanders. Now, we do have Taylor Heinicke listed as a sit, but Taylor Heinicke is kind of just underneath the fence of being a guy that I would want to start. Heinicke has a lot of risks to his game. I talk about this a lot. He does the crazy thing where he points, he says, fuck it, McLaurin's out there somewhere, cocks back, throws a missile down the field. Sometimes it's a pick six. Sometimes it's a touchdown. It's this crazy catch. Heinicke is a very risky player. He puts his balls in a wheelbarrow and he slings the rock. Sometimes he shits the bed. Sometimes he has a great game. So he's very risky. The Falcons defense is bad. So if you wanted to talk yourself into starting Heinicke, I certainly wouldn't make some crazy argument, but he's not one of the guys that is listed inside my top 18 quarterbacks. Marcus Mariota is going to be a start for me in this matchup. The Commanders defense has looked a lot better, but even in these games where Marcus Mariota looks terrible. If you remember up against the Panthers, Mariota did not look very good in that game at all, and yet he's still putting up solid fantasy football numbers. He's not ever really a guy that's going to be the reason why your team wins, right? Marcus Mariota isn't going to put your team on his back. He's never really going to do that. And the loss of Kyle Pitts might hurt a little bit, but at the same time, doesn't even fucking matter because Marcus Mariota doesn't force feed the ball to one of the best tight ends in the NFL. So Marcus Mariota, ultimately, I will list him as a start, but if you wanted to argue, if you had Heinicke and Mariota and you said, Nick, I want to start Heinicke instead, I'm not going to make a crazy argument with you. Next up, we move to the LA Chargers at the Arizona Cardinals. Justin Herbert, the pervert, as well as the short king, Kyler Murray, are both listed as starts for me. The Cardinals offense was a disaster in Mexico City with Colt McCoy under center. The San Francisco 49ers defense ate those motherfuckers up for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It was like one of those where you're eating at Thanksgiving and you have dinner number one and then you have like dinner number two, and then maybe at night you get hungry, you heat some shit up after you ate dessert, so now you're like 4 meals deep on Thanksgiving, 5 meals deep if you ate breakfast. That's kind of what the Niners did. They just kept eating them up. The Niners defense suffocated the fuck out of the Cardinals offense. Ultimately, I think with Kyler Murray back, Kyler Murray is start worthy. We just saw the Chargers get pumped from the back by Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, the Chiefs are probably one of the best, if not the best team in the National Football League. So Kyler, obviously, and the Cardinals aren't on that same degree, but still, I think this is a bounce-back game for the Cardinals. Justin Herbert, the pervert, gets back Keenan Allen. He gets back Mike Williams last week, and of course, they rush Mike Williams back, so he gets hurt. Joshua Palmer appears to be a lethal fucking weapon in this offense. Joshua Palmer went ecstatic. He went ballistic in that matchup. The Cardinals defense isn't very good either. So this might be a sneaky, really high-scoring game. Next up, we move to the turn your volume down, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Seattle Seahawks. Hopefully I didn't wake the neighbors up. But at the end of the day here, Derek Carr is going to be a start, but he's one of those fringe starts. Derek Carr has not been what I thought he was going to be this season. This whole Raiders offense has been the exact opposite of what I thought. The Broncos, the whole AFC West, I was auto-fellatioing. I was giving them the metaphorical gawk 9,000 because everyone was, right? Oh my gosh, Carr, Adams, Russell Wilson, Sutton, Judy. Oh my gosh, the Chiefs. And then, Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Mike Williams. And then this division is just the same thing it's been for the last couple of years, where the Chiefs are just laughing maniacally in first place. The Raiders have had some ups. They've had some downs. Josh McDaniels looks like he's about to have to walk the fucking plank Jack Sparrow style. So I think Derek Carr is start worthy because the Seahawks defense isn't the best, but the Seahawks defense has been sneaky kind of good recently. So Carr's like one of those bottom of the barrel starts. I definitely feel a lot more comfortable starting Geno Smith, who is going to win comeback player of the year. I don't know what he's coming back from though. That's something I'll never understand. Like, I get when Alex Smith won because they almost had to amputate his leg, But sometimes, like, comeback player of the year doesn't make too much sense. But, hey, Geno's been playing really good. So, again, I'm not sitting here trying to discredit Geno. It's more like the award doesn't make too much sense. The Raiders' defense is fucking bad. Next up, we got the LA Rams at the Kansas City Chiefs. In this one, you're going to start Patrick Mahomes. I know that is a big shocker. Even with all the wide receivers hurt, Mahomes just throwing to these random-ass tight ends, these fourth-string practice squad receivers you've never heard of. And he's just playing incredible. Like, Mahomes is going to end up winning the MVP, in my opinion. I do have a Tua to win MVP slip at plus 1,000. Hopefully that cashes for me, but I'm going to need Mahomes to probably shit the bed in, like, 3 games or 2 games for Tua to be able to catch up to him, because Tua got hurt, which kind of sucks. But obviously, we're not talking about betting here. We're talking about the Rams. And if you want to bet, make sure you use BetMGM and use that World Cup code that I talked about. Link in the video description if you're a new user. But you got to start Mahomes, obviously. Not gonna kind of dance on this for a while, right? We already know why we're starting Mahomes. Matthew Stafford, 2 concussions potentially in 3 weeks. That is very bad. Bryce Perkins would be the starter. Bryce Perkins, kind of flashy, kind of interesting, but, like, not for fantasy football. Like, it's like, oh, let's watch Bryce Perkins. Maybe he does something cool here. But in terms of fantasy football, you're not going to start him. Next up, we got the New Orleans Saints at the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo. At least that's what the 49ers players are calling him. That's what Kittle Me Timbers called him. Jimmy Guap, Jimmy G-Spot, Jimmy Pornstar, Jimmy G-String, Jimmy Garoppolo. Quarterback of the 49ers, the Italian stallion himself. God damn, I don't remember what network is Monday Night Football was ESPN, so it was ESPN. Those bastards showed Jimmy looking fly as hell, you know. Not to be weird here, Jimmy's looking good, you know. Walking in, glasses on. Maybe he didn't have glasses on, I don't remember. Walking into the game, and then they show Colt McCoy right after, and it's like, that's just a dagger into Colt McCoy's heart. Like, why you have to do that to Colt McCoy? Well, I got to do that to him. It was funny visual. You can definitely find it on the internet. A lot of people are tweeting about it. Jimmy Guap up against the Saints defense. This might be a massacre. The Niners offense was firing at all cylinders. This was crazy to see. They were just laying haymaker blow after haymaker blow to that Arizona Cardinals defense. I don't think Jimmy plays that good this game, but Jimmy's like a game manager that you just start every week. You never really expect, hey, this guy's going to be like a top 3 quarterback, but I guess he has top 5 in him. But you know, in a week where there's no one on bye, I doubt he's going to finish inside the top 5. Andy Dalton, the red rifle, looked really good last week. That fucking throw he threw to Chris Olave made me ejaculate out of my eyes, of course. It was beautiful to see, but Andy Dalton's a sit. The Niners defense, again, incredibly legit. Next up, we got the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday Night Football. Despite the fact that this Green Bay Packers team is kind of just falling apart, it's looking really bad. At the same time, though, Watson is just eating touchdowns. Like Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, the former 2-time MVP, Mr. Discount, double check, has still been putting up solid fantasy numbers. Like, again, he's not like this league-winning quarterback or anything. And I know the Eagles' defense is tough, so it's hard to really rank him super high. But would it surprise me if Rodgers scored 20 fantasy points against the Eagles? Nah, it really wouldn't. To be honest with you. Jalen Hurts is going to be a start. You start him every single week. Last week up against the Colts, we're going to talk about next. I thought that one was going to be just a blowout. Just a absolute ass pounding by Jalen Hurts. The books had it. They were, I believe, over 10 favorites, so like plus 10, plus 11. It was projected to be a fucking smackdown. And I'm not talking about the WWE. It was projected to be a beatdown of sorts, and it didn't happen. Jalen Hurts played okay in that game. I think up against the Packers defense, I think Hurts hops back on the saddle, yeehaw, and has a much better performance. Final game here, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Colts. Matt Ryan, not the best last week, but they almost won against the Eagles. I'm not trying to like make fun of Matt Ryan, but that was a lower scoring game. And then the week prior to that, Matt Ryan looked like fucking Jalen Hurts running the ball. Of course, he doesn't look that good at running the ball. He's slow as fuck, but great run out of him. They win that game. He has a solid performance. The Steelers defense has not been what I thought they would amount to. But the Steelers defense is still really good and way better with TJ Watt. So I think this is kind of their get-right game. I think Matt Ryan kind of struggles here. Kenny Pickett has some rushing upside. He's an interesting player. I think he might end up being the franchise guy for the Steelers. It's too early to tell, though. There's just not enough pieces around him to really say anything about it. Like, you can't really make like some strong proclamation after year one, like, oh, this fucking small hand bastard sucks ass, or oh, this guy's amazing. There's like, to me, he looks like he has flashes. Sometimes he looks bad, but again, he's a rookie. And he came into the year not as the starter. Kissing Titties Trubisky was the guy. So like, you take what you see out of him. You're like, okay, he earned his role next year as the starter, right? That's kind of just what I see. But what I also see is him being a sit this game up against the Colts defense. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you did end up enjoying today's video, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do hit a like on today's video. It'd help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter, please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. And if you guys have any questions about week number 12, please ask down below in the comments section. I love talking to you guys down there. Check out our BetMGM offer. Bet $10 on any pre-game money line on the World Cup. Win $200 in free bets if anyone scores, which is guaranteed to happen. So make sure you guys check that out. As always, guys, hope you have a great guys' day. Goodbye.